Oh, sorry. I was just shopping at my local buydrugsonline.com. It's much better than that place across town. I was thinking about trying this new drug named fentanyl. I'm hearing crazy stuff about it. They say it can kill you just by touching you. Maybe even through the screen. They're just they're just kidding about that though. Of course. Hey, weather's really shit right now. When it's really grey and looks really bad, just like imagine that you're not on drugs, and then when it looks nice, like right now, imagine that you are. Yeah, that's the message that I think I wanna bring to this. All right, so I do want to start this video off with a little disclaimer. Fentanyl is not a drug you should do. It is an opioid, which they're all inherently addictive, and even if what I say in this video disproves some specific situations of overdoses, it is still easy to overdose on it. I will be making jokes and making fun of things and people in this video, but that's just try and use even just a little bit of media literacy and don't take it as an endorsement of a highly addictive opioid. Fentanyl is an opioid that is 50 times stronger than heroin, which by itself is already twice as strong as morphine. Included in this, it also gets like plus 30 range against cops. I'd love to explain why super heroin plus might be addictive, but I'm actually not a huge fent fiend myself, so you have to find out for yourself. Or don't. The science reason is that it bonds to opioid receptors in the brain, basically turning up your pain threshold so you feel all drowsy and sleepy. A huge amount of the painkillers that you get in America are opioids, like a lot. You are just as likely to die from a prescribed painkiller than you are of heroin, even after the bump it received from that fluting Jesse scene in Breaking Bad. I can't stress enough how insane that is. Painkillers, something that you can be very easily prescribed legally, are more likely to kill you than heroin. At this point, instead of giving you some codeine, the pharmacist should just hand you some black tar heroin, a syringe, and a spoon. You can get like a lighter for $2. Now, this does not mean that heroin is safer than prescribed opioids, far from it. The reasons for this can be pretty easily traced back to the suspiciously high availability of these prescription painkillers. And that, well, that's just the Sackler family. By bribing doctors to overprescribe the highly addictive opioids, it became infinitely easier to be introduced to them. When your doctor, who you're paying for professional advice, is just pouring these things into your mouth, it's no fucking wonder it manages to throw in heroin. This isn't breaking news or anything, but I think it's a pretty important thing to show just how addictive opioids are, and also to stress that there really isn't a good opioid. And now, I want you to think about all that you've heard of heroin, and then also all that you've just heard about prescribed opioids, and then triple that. Because that's what fentanyl is. And then, below that is the subscribe button and the like button, which you should really click if... So this video is about cops lying about fentanyl, but as you saw, this had to have come from somewhere. The Sackler family managed to get entire generations hooked on opioids, and these effects are still being seen today. While fentanyl was and is prescribed by doctors, the vast majority of overdose deaths are from street-level synthesized variants. The problem is, once you're addicted to baby's first opioid, Super Codeine Plus with Knuckles featuring Dante from Devil May Cry series sounds pretty sweet. Street fentanyl is often incredibly varied in its potency due to it being made with much less precision or being cut, so you may suddenly be using effectively much more than you usually would, and if you're getting close to the limit already, you can easily reach a deadly dose. As well as this, other opioids such as heroin are often laced with fentanyl to increase the potency and may also become considerably more dangerous from batch to batch. Now, let's get into the nitty gritty. How do you take fentanyl? There are like 4 main ways. That there's liquid form, powdered form, pill form, or a transdermal patch. This last one sounds a little interesting because that means you can absorb fentanyl through your skin. This will be very important later, as it's kind of the first domino in the super effective powers of fentanyl versus cops. These patches often contain highly concentrated liquid fentanyl, which is very slowly released, as it takes hours for it being tightly pressed up against your skin in liquid form to breach the skin. We can just load that bullet into our anti-propaganda gun, which looks really like a taser, and comes with a handy cocaine slot for easy traffic stop evidence planting. Unfortunately, it didn't come with gloves, which means that when the fentanyl I ordered gets here, I'll probably just die. I mean, I've got like 10 minutes till it's dropped off, so while I wait, let's take a transmonitorable dose of propaganda. So, while the military may contribute multi-million-dollar equipment and fund projects in order to get their insidious sway in Hollywood, the police has managed to have a relatively similar amount of success in much cheaper ways. Police have historically been viewed incredibly favourably by the general population, and even now, most people are confident in their trust of police. Of course, this is not as represented by black respondents, but those in charge of what appears on your TV or cinema experience rarely care much about that. If you ever watched or read the news, I recommend keeping a keen eye for police coverage. They'll talk about some stupid cop lip-syncing trend, or that video of the cop dancing for a really bad charity. If they do talk about one of the many instances of a cop doing an oopsie with a little deadly bullet, they'll code in so much passive language you'll be under the impression the cop wasn't even there. What's passive language, you ask? It's the... Oh, you didn't... Shut up. The video was free. Passive language is the framing of something to remove blame or insinuation. You'll see a story about a cop killing someone 3 sentences down and grammatically removed from the action that they took. Take the initial coverage of the George Floyd murder, for example. Like, what is this shit? They aren't even paying you guys. This is pathetic. So after you've watched your propaganda-filled news in the morning, you can go out to a nice propaganda-filled movie like Die Hard or Speed, or stay in to watch a nice cozy propaganda-filled show like Brooklyn Nine-Nine or NCIS. I'm not going to say that you can't enjoy the odd cop-based TV show or movie, but it is important to note that what you're watching is just that, a piece of fiction that is rarely going to show the full truthful events or actions taken by American police officers. While these shows contain actors, well, acting as police officers, one genre underrepresented on your living room's light box is police officers emulating soccer players the moment they so much as hear the word fentanyl. So you've almost definitely seen one of these videos. Little piggy goes to the market, sees a packet of flour and then collapses onto the floor. They play these kindergarten plays on the morning news, they post it on Facebook and Twitter with that sad emoji, and they float through the primordial soup of YouTube, getting tens of millions of views. They all have that same base formula. Cop senses fentanyl, whether that be through touch or smell or even sight sometimes, convulses on the floor, and then all the other cops come and save them with some Narcan and a big smooch and a hug. Gotta hand it to them though, some of them are cut with some pretty interesting ingredients. This guy started busting it down from evidence bags while wearing gloves, though thankfully he was already in the house of bricks when the big bad wolf came to get him. Usually they're out in the open, theoretically in the scariest place for them. Not even a house made of straw out there for them. And this brings us to the biggest point that is not being obscured at all. These are not fentanyl overdoses. As I said earlier, liquid form fentanyl takes hours being tightly pressed against the skin to be absorbed. Almost all of these videos describe the fentanyl touched as powder form, which would pretty much have to wait for you to sweat before it could breach the transdermal barrier unless you had like a cut there or something. You cannot overdose from touching fentanyl. This guy with gloves on definitely did not overdose on fentanyl. You could overdose if you started eating white powder you find in evidence bags or people's cars, but I think that points to a much more worrying trend if it's what keeps happening to our boys in blue. Well, I wouldn't be especially surprised, as one of the leading causes of accidental death is them not looking before opening their doors on the highway, but it would put a little dent in that tiny little bit of faith that I had. So what the hell is going on with these videos? Like, why is such an easily disproved lie getting such positive coverage? Well, that's because it isn't really a lie. These officers genuinely believe that they are having an overdose. I mean, I'm sure a few of them are lying, but what's actually likely happening is that after seeing Officer Porky's overdose, another officer is terrified of it happening to him. Compounded with the fact that for years, officers have just been told that just touching it can kill them by the DEA. It's of little wonder that 80% of officers believe that touching it can be deadly. So when a cop finds some of the scary powder in a traffic stop and maybe brush some on their finger as they move it, they panic. They freak out and they start feeling a little different. It's probably just adrenaline, a feeling almost opposite to the sluggish feeling that opioids give, but that doesn't matter. They start to panic and emulate an overdose just from sheer fear, thanks to the almost insurmountable boogeyman they created for fentanyl. For most people, official information from sources like the DEA and CDC is more than enough proof, and these panic attacks only cemented this. CNN, in an incredibly ironic piece, says that there are no confirmed cases of officers overdosing, and says that the symptoms that these officers describe fit a panic attack much more than an overdose. So, why do outlets pick up these embarrassing freakout videos? Well, people click on them, and it makes cops happy when their profession is seen as more dangerous than it actually is. Historically, police officers have loved inflating the danger of numerous drugs to justify higher punishments. I mean, look at weed, for example. It was a very racially motivated wedge. White people generally smoke a little bit more weed than black people, yet black people were arrested at 4 times the rate. The specifics of this aren't really the point. It's just the fact that it isn't some stupid mistake that caused this. It's a collaboration of misinformation, devised to instill fear in people, so they think that they're only brave men and women in blue who can save them. Except this time it kind of worked too well. Oh, here it is. Give me a sec. Ah, look at that. Kinda wish they'd wrapped it in something that seems pretty unsafe. Oh well, as long as I don't get it in my mouth or something.